Good evening. Welcome to the Dayton Metro Library. My name is Austin Rayleigh, and I am our Director of Government Affairs and Advocacy. I appreciate you all being here, and most importantly, what your attendance means is the world to us because, as we know, there aren't many places where you can really say free to belong and something is also free exist. Unfortunately, we're losing places every day, spaces every day that don't necessarily allow for people to just be themselves and just come as who they are. And so you guys being here, being a part of this series is very special to us, and we want to say thank you for sharing this moment with us. The Social Justice Speaker Series was started 2 years ago by our Director of Equity and Diversity and Inclusion, Dr. Carlos L. Marshall. Clap it up for Dr. Marshall. He's done an amazing job, and I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Marshall years ago, but having worked with him in the last year and seeing this series just develop and grow has been an amazing opportunity. This is an example of the library's unwavering commitment to provide relevant programming and reflective issues and reflective moments for us to look at. I want to especially thank the friends of the Dayton Metro Library who made this possible with their support, so clap it up for them, please. With their support and funding, we are able to do more programming like this. Often people look at us and they ask, what's the best way to support? Some may say money, we'll take money, but really the best way to support is actually to get a library card. Most people don't know that the library system is actually partly funded based on the number of library cards and the number of usage of said library cards. So I can tell you guys a secret. If I tell you a secret, will you keep it? Yes? I just got my library card yesterday, right? Don't tell nobody that. Don't tell anybody this. But because it is a part of the formula that allows for us to get funding from the state level. So if you don't have your library card, it is Library Card Awareness Month, September. If you sign up for DML, you can do it today. There's a QR code. You get a special card. One, the Gem City, and the other one is a iHeart banned book. So if you want to support us, please make your way to getting the library card. Without further ado, I will now pass it over to Dr. Marshall, and I want to tell everyone to enjoy the evening and give them a big round of applause when they come out here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Austin, for such a gracious introduction. Good evening and welcome to yet another speaker series of our 2024 Social Justice Speaker Series here at the Dayton Metro Library, where I proudly serve as your Chief Diversity Officer. The Dayton Metro Library Social Justice Speaker Series is an ongoing initiative that brings some of the world's most prominent authors, creatives, scholars, activists, and practitioners to Montgomery County. At the library, cultivating spaces for courageous conversations and intergroup dialogue where everyone is free to belong is core to our values of equity, diversity, and inclusion. The Social Justice Speaker Series places an emphasis on supporting diverse groups and change agents that come from backgrounds that have been systematically marginalized from the literary canon, publishing industry, cultural and creative discourses, and beyond. And now to introduce this evening's speaker. What were you doing at the age of 26? Michael D. Tubbs was making history. In 2016, he was elected mayor of Stockton at 26 years old. He was the city's first African-American mayor and the youngest mayor of any major city in American history. As mayor, Tubbs was lauded for his leadership and innovation. He raised over $20 million to create the Stockton Scholars, a universal scholarship and mentoring program for Stockton students. Additionally, he piloted the first mayor-led guaranteed income pilot in the country. Currently, he is the special advisor to California Governor Gavin Newsom for economic mobility and opportunity, the founder of Mayors for Guaranteed Income, and the founder of End Poverty in California. Under his leadership, Stockton was named an All-American City in 2017 and 2018 by the National Civic League. The city saw a 40% drop in homicides in 2018 and 2019, led the state of California in the decline of officer-involved shootings in 2019, and was named the second most fiscally healthy city in California. Additionally, It was recognized as one of the most fiscally healthy cities in the nation and was featured in the HBO documentary Stockton on My Mind. Tubbs has been named a fellow at the Harvard Institute of Politics and the MIT Media Lab, a member of Fortune's Top 40 Under 40, a Forbes 30 Under 30 All-Star alumni, the most valuable mayor by the nation, the 2019 New Frontier Award winner from the JFK Library, and the 2021 Civic Leadership Award winner from the King Center. Prior to his tenure as mayor, Tubbs served as a council member for the city of Stockton, District 6, a high school counselor, and a fellow for the Stanford Design School and Emerson Collective. On November 16, 2021, Tubbs released The Deeper the Roots, a memoir of hope and home, published by the Flatiron Books imprint and Oprah Book. The book, which the LA Times described as intimate and insightful, not only relates to Tubbs' history and story of growing up in poverty, but lays his vision for leadership and policy that is more empathetic and responsive to people who are struggling. And Michael D. Tubbs will be interviewed by Darius J. Beckham, who was born and raised in Dayton. He is currently senior policy aide to Dayton Mayor Jeffrey J. Mims and previously served as legislative aide to former Mayor Nan Whaley. In between those roles, Darius worked as a project manager at the Hall Hunger Initiative, a local nonprofit dedicated to eliminating hunger in the Miami Valley region through partnerships and community action. Darius graduated from the University of Dayton, where he studied political science and sociology, and was also a Dayton Civic Scholar. So without further ado, please help us give a warm Montgomery County welcome to Michael and Darius.
So good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see all of your faces this evening. Thank you for coming out for this exciting conversation. Thank you, Michael, for being in Dayton this evening. I've been following this guy since I was in college. His arc and
I am not that old. That is a crazy statement.
Well, I should probably start by saying I graduated in 2019, so it was very recent. But Michael has been somebody that I think has an incredible story. You just heard his bio, which was truly amazing. I think we signed some books earlier upstairs, and you all hopefully know his background by now. But I want to start with your inception. I want to start with what drew you to doing everything that you've accomplished so far and what you will do. So start with your childhood, how it was growing up in Stockton, California, and what eventually led you to say, hey, I think this is where I want to go.
Well, first, thank you guys so much for having me. I think it's an absolute privilege to be here, particularly in 2024, where we live in a country, literally, where more books are banned than weapons of war, right? Like the fact that we're here having a conversation about the future of democracy, while we have a democracy, is not as a privilege I don't take for granted. So I appreciate the leadership for allowing these conversations to happen publicly. And also I would say, forgive my manners. I forgot I'm not in California. I'm in the Midwest, and y'all dress up. I walked in and I saw the doctor, and what was that, 5-piece suit and a tie, and then looking like the governor or the mayor or somebody, and it's like, who's this slob? So please forgive me. I do own suits. They're just at home. Now, to answer your question, so born and raised in Stockton, California. For those of you that don't know, Stockton is a city about the size of Cincinnati. It's 330,000 people. It's in Northern California. It's between Sacramento and the Bay Area. So it's about an hour away from Sacramento and an hour and 30 minutes away from San Francisco. It's the most diverse city in the country. The entire world literally is in Stockton. I was speaking earlier about how at one point Stockton had more, and I am so sorry, I talk really fast and all the interpreters have to work when I'm talking, so I'll do my best. to make it easy on you tonight. But Stockton had more Filipino people living in Stockton than any other place in the world outside the Philippines. Once upon a time, Dolores Huerta called Stockton home at one point. Maxine Hong Kingston, Maya Angelou, Larry Itliong. It's a place deeply important, I would argue, to American history. So I was born and raised in Stockton. And on the other side of Stockton, I was speaking with the folks at the Omega Promise Zone earlier, and I was born in, wasn't a Promise Zone then, but I was born in a part of Stockton that needed a promise. My mother was 16 when she had me, and my father was in a juvenile facility when I was born. He's still incarcerated, and I'm 34 years old now. So for 32 of the last 34 years, he's been caged. But growing up, I think I was blessed with an amazing mom, aunt, and grandmother who are all incredibly hardworking, resilient, and taught lessons that really guided my work today. They taught me that I was better than no one, but that no one was better than me. Because of our church community, they taught me that I wasn't here by accident, that there was something for me to do, that I had a purpose, that despite the structural barriers and despite the poverty and despite all the things that were bleak, that God had a plan. And it was my job to figure out what that plan was. They taught me about service. I remember going every Saturday to the convalescent home with my grandmother to talk and play and read and sing to the folks in the convalescent homes. I remember being hungry and serving food to hungry people. I remember doing all those things. So looking back, I feel so blessed that they really guarded me from some of the harsh realities and made it very clear that what we experienced or what we saw wasn't a reflection of our worth. It wasn't a reflection of our value, but were things to serve as motivation to overcome them or to change them. Was that your question? No, that was part of your question, because then that's the beginning, that's origin. And then was lucky enough to go to Stanford University, got my master's and bachelor's there. And actually going there, I had no intention of ever coming back to Stockton. In fact, the senior year before I left for college, I made my family buy nothing but sweaters and pea coats because I was going to go to the East Coast for school. So I moved into Stanford with a bunch of sweaters and pea coats, and it was hot that whole fall semester because they said, we're not buying nothing. We spent good money on this pea coat and this turtleneck, so you got to, the rooms are AC'd in school anyway. But at Stanford, I had no intention of ever going back. I thought I would do something in service, but didn't think it'd be elected office. I thought it would be sort of not central to my life, but something I did, like volunteer, like support, like donate. And then my junior year, I interned in the Obama White House, and my job was in intergovernmental affairs. So I worked with mayors and councils, and I hated it. I was so upset. It was the most boring thing ever. I was like, why would I want to work with mayors and councils? Who wants to be a mayor? I was like, just talking crazy. Like, this is these mayors and these councils, who cares? But I would spend 12 hours a day for 3 months Googling mayors and council members, meeting with mayors and council members, writing memos about what mayors and council members needed and what they were doing. And what was fascinating to me at that time was I found out then that Stockton was the 61st largest city in the country, the same size as, bigger than Newark, New Jersey. And at the time, Cory Booker was mayor, and Newark was getting all the love. And I was like, man, Stockton's bigger than Newark? And look what Mayor Booker's doing, right? So I said, okay, well, maybe what I'll do is find good people to run for office in Stockton and then connect them to the folks and the relationships I'm building here. To make a longer story short, around the same time, one of my cousins was murdered at a house party on Halloween in 2010. And really, it was that murder that caused me to pause and to think about, okay, what's all this for? Because up to that point, people had said, yo, you're successful. Look where you came from. Now you're at Stanford. I was at Google before the White House. You have all these good internships. And I just felt real guilty. Because I was like, well, I mean, I get a lot of love for being from Stockton, but Stockton's actually not better for me being here. Like, nothing about Stockton's improving from me being here. I'm taking a lot, but what I'm actually giving. And then sort of dealing with the anger and the pain and the emotion, I thought that, well, maybe I should run for city council. I was a senior in college. It was kind of a crazy idea. I was a senior in college. Had never worked on a campaign before, but I just knew that there was something about the city council that felt like a calling. And then previous to that, I said, okay, I'll wait a little bit. So I applied for a fellowship. And I applied for the Rhodes Fellowship and did the essays, had the best recs, did good in my interview, I thought. Everyone was like, you're going to get, this is what you're supposed to do. Yeah. I'm like, oh, perfect. I'll go to Oxford, then I'll come back to Stockton. And I ended up not getting it. And it was in the midst of that rejection, I had to pause and think about, okay, well, what is that you really wanted to do? And that's when I decided to run for city council. And I share that anecdote because I think one of the reoccurring themes that I keep learning is that oftentimes rejection is very helpful for redirection. That all the times I've been rejected or I've been told no or quote unquote failed, it sucks always and it never feels good. But in each of those moments, I learned something valuable that made the next thing or that pushed me to do the thing I didn't want to do. So that's the deeper the roots in 5 minutes, actually. Yeah. So we did the whole book. Good job, team.
So you ran at a very young age. And you were in your 20s, first city council, and then eventually mayor. Talk to us about what that was like, coming to that decision at such a young age and feeling called and recognizing like this is what I'm going to do. Like what were those conversations like, and then what were some of the challenges being such a young person in leadership?
I don't know what anybody was thinking. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what the voters were thinking. I don't know what God was thinking. No. Because I have 3 kids now. I'm 34. So I look back, I'm like, wow, you were more impressive then than now, brother. Like, what? Like, you got some special oil back then. I don't know what was that. No, I think part of it, though, was just being sort of blinded, not by ambition, but by a sense of purpose. Like going in, like my cousin was just murdered. I'm running for the seat because I want to reduce homicides. Like that level of focus and intensity was very helpful because part of government is that like the bureaucracy moves slow. That the status quo has a lot of friends. So going in, and I tell people all the time, like when you run for something, don't run to be something, run to do something, right? Because oftentimes we have folks who are running to be something, and then when they win, that's their goal. So don't expect them to do nothing. They didn't say they're going to do nothing. They said they're going to be something. They're going to be the councilman. So I think it's that mentality towards like I want to do something was super helpful, and I think being so young made it safer for me to ask questions and made it easier for people to trust me. Because in Stockton, when I was mayor and on city council, the council was 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats. So it wasn't. So you had to build trust. You had to talk across difference. And I think being so young gave me the space to ask questions, even questions I knew the answer to, but I wasn't sure they knew the answer to, and to build trust. And I think being young also gave me the room to be a little crazy. Because oh, he's young, so I would just say stuff like, we should do this. They'd be, oh, he's young. But they would think about it, and we might not do this, but we get close to this, right? And we move incrementally. I also think it's not necessarily about being about youth, but not being being an outsider to the system, I think gave me fresh eyes as to sort of what just wasn't working or what didn't make sense, and really a desire to know why. Because not everything we did was bad, right? So I want to know, well, why did we make this decision, though? I just want to understand why. So that's the first thing. And then when I ran for mayor, it was interesting because I was young, but I had as much experience as anyone else running. Because I spent 4 years as a council member. I was chair of the audit committee, et cetera. And when I was elected, I remember calling my team together and saying like, hey, you guys, there's never been a 26-year-old mayor anywhere of a city of more than 100,000 people. They're like, yeah. I said, there's never been a black mayor in this city, and black people have been here since 1492, and there's never been one to be mayor in 2016. I said, so I think we're not going to be different for different sake, but our government should behave differently now that I'm in the seat. Right. Like, if it's not any different, then it's like, what's the point? And I think that was also the other thing that kind of youth and being first only whatever gave me is this idea that it should be different. We should be having different conversations. Yeah. The policy should be different. Or what's the point, yeah. Right? What's the point? And I think the last thing sort of my youth gave me was that it made me realize that there's some things that intellect can get you, but experience is still a great teacher, right? So just surrounding myself. So when I was mayor, the first thing I did was appoint my vice mayor. He was 72 years old, but he had so much wisdom. And he would always say, I got shoes older than you. And I would say, well, you need to get some new shoes, my guy. That's crazy. You got more shoes for this long? But he had such wisdom, and he would, even if I disagreed, he would like explain to me how even if the answer was right, that we might piss off all these people we might need for the next thing. So maybe let's do, like, he just taught me how to sequence things, right, how to package things. Like, it's not enough to be right, but you have to bring people on with you. And I ain't listen all the time, but he was right most of the time when he said, like, let's do this later. So I say all that to say, I think age and being young and being youthful is important, but that does not discount the importance of experience, right? But I just don't think youth in and of itself or experience in and of itself is actually enough to make things better or to get something done. I think you need a mix of both. But more importantly, there has to be a desire to do something. And I say that because doing something, and you know this because you work in government, like doing something is hard. Like the status quo has a lot of friends, even if it's not working. And that's one of the lessons I learned was that even when people complained about homelessness or homicides, etc., saying let's do something different created a bunch of conflict, created a bunch of noise, created a bunch of fighting. So I think, I don't know if it's youth or being from South Stockton, but you just have to be ready to fight. Like you have to have a dog in you. You have to be really like, okay, people are gonna be upset, people are gonna be angry, people are gonna lie on you. But if it's worth it, you have to do it anyway. And I'm not sure if that's a youth thing or upbringing thing, but I think that's probably the biggest key for all the work that we were able to do.
Yeah, a lot of gems dropped there, a ton of gems. So, you talk about doing things differently, right? And you did a lot of different things. So you take the reins of the mayor's office at 26, and you start piloting a number of new initiatives, right? So probably the one thing that clearly became a national story was universal basic income. So tell us about what brought your office to say, this is what we're going to do, and then how did that actually work in implementation?
So we had a lot of meetings my first month. So one of those first month meetings when I was like in the zone, I said, you guys, we spent 4 years on city council, and I just feel like we talk about everything but poverty. Like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I remember sitting in meetings in the library and with the school district talking about literacy, our third grade literacy rates, and our educational attainment rates. And the data that was presented suggested to me that folks with more money had better scores and higher literacy rates. And I said, then the next meeting will be with the police chief in the community. And we'd sit and talk about community policing and building trust and bringing our clearance rates up and our conviction rates up, et cetera. And I said, but all the neighborhoods where at least the crimes we're counting occurring also don't have money. Like the gated communities and the 2-story houses and the houses that like the stuff with the nice neighborhoods seem to be like okay. Yeah. And the only difference I can see is like money, like poverty. And I said on every issue, we're talking about everything but the main thing. And I said, I want our administration to be focused on what can we do to get rid of poverty? Like, we just don't need it. Like, let's be radical. Like, no poverty, full stop. And they said, well, we might not be able to do that. I said, well, if we can't do it, we can pilot something. We can try something. We can force a community conversation that poverty, not people, not bad people, not these young black kids, poverty is the cause of a lot of the ills we have, and we all are culpable because poverty is caused by policy. Like, I truly believe that that pathology doesn't cause poverty, but poverty itself is the pathology, right? Like the sickness is the fact that we have poverty. So anyway, I said, so come back with something crazy. That's why I said something radical. I said, I get programs, I get services, and we have that, and we're gonna keep that. That's a good starting point. But give me something we haven't done before. And then when my brilliant young staff members came back with these studies from Mexico and Brazil around cash transfers or guaranteed income. But they were giving people like $1 or $2 a day. And I was like, bro, we can't be giving people $1 a day. That's crazy. I was like, we can't do that. Like, come on. Like, is there something more like to match our? He was like, well, Mary, you could just increase the amount. I was like, okay, that's true. And well, for real, imagine someone come to your office saying they gave $2 a day in Mexico, and you're like, these people will get so insulted if I gave them $2 a day. Like, it just, so I wasn't thinking. So he was like, but you can increase the amount. So that's a good point. And then I was reminded in my sophomore year in college, I read Where Do We Go From Here by Dr. King, KSR Community, his last book. And in it, he says he spent his life in the movement, and he said we try to solve poverty by solving for healthcare or for education or for housing. He said all those things are important, but those are inadequate, pygmy, siloed solutions to poverty, and that the simplest way and the most effective way to solve poverty is the most direct, guaranteed income, et cetera. So I was familiar with the concept, and it was like, it'd be cool to be part of that discussion one day. So 10 years later, it's in my desk in the office. So I said, okay, let's figure it out. And then the next week, this is how God works. The next week, I'm in San Francisco at like this tech conference, and no one that looks like us was at this tech conference, but it was about the future of democracy. And it didn't look like this room, I'm telling you. So I was like, these people are on the side of democracy. Okay, so I'm in this, I'm in this meeting, and they're talking, and I'm taking notes. And then a friend of mine comes to me. Her name's Natalie Foster. She's co-chair of the Economic Security Project. She approaches me and says, hey, Mayor Tubbs, we are looking for a city to test a basic income in. Would you be interested? And you're going to judge me for this, but I'm going to be honest because we're family. I said, oh my gosh, Natalie. She said, what? I said, do you know I have a task force seriously looking at this issue? Wow. We are committed. We are dedicated. We just had a meeting, but we had a task force and we were working on it. And I said, we stand ready to implement.
You sold it.
And 6 months later, Stockton, California, first city to pilot a guaranteed income program. So what we did, but part of it was actually doing the research and looking at the fact that it wasn't just poverty, but at the time, and to this day, 1 out of every 2 American couldn't afford one $500 emergency, despite so many people doing so well. Yeah. And that just struck me. So I was like, well, what if he gave people $500 a month? And let's test it. I was like, because Brene Brown, she has this amazing quote that it's more important to be committed to getting it right than to being right. Like, be in inquiry mode, iterate, test. You don't have the answer, but be committed to finding an answer. It out, So that's what we did. I said, well, look, I know what's not working. Policing as a solution to poverty. Right. I know what's not working. Motivational speaking as a solution to poverty. I know what's not working. Financial literacy without people having finances. Like, I'm like, all this stuff we're doing just doesn't work. So let's figure out what does work. And it's funny though, because I thought everyone would be like, oh yeah, let's try something new. No, we got death threat. Like, people were upset. Hot. Like, Bill O'Reilly was put in my face. He always put like Fox the most News, right? Extra picture of me too. It wasn't like me looking like you. It was like me looking like Trick Daddy or something. It's like Mayor Stockton giving money. And them folks would get mad. I start calling that off. Every time we got, I said, did Bill O'Reilly post about me again? Because we knew. Anyway.
Influx. Yeah.
So we gave 100 people $500 a month.
Okay.
No strings attached.
Wow.
And then we set up an evaluation to test sort of really 3 questions. So impacts on health, impact on employment, and impact on income volatility, or like the way money moves, et cetera. And what we found was that, people spend money the way you and I spend money. I was shocked at how when we said this, before we had selected a single person, people were saying what these people are going to spend money on. And what shocked me was that, and I told a reporter this, I said, I'm talking about you, like UBI, you and I, like, it's not them.
Right.
It's like, how would you spend money? And I think what we had to contend with was this narrative that people who have less money are somehow less intelligent or somehow less capable. But truly, intelligence is found up and down the income strata.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen any correlation necessarily with intelligence and income, right? There's a lot of other things, because we live in a society that's rife with bias that we have to fix, right? So that was the first thing we had to contend with. The second thing we had to contend with was this idea that people were going to stop working. And that was a dumb one to me, because I said, I don't know anyone who's going to stop working for $500 a month.
Yeah. That's
$5,000 a month. They should
Maybe.
stop working. I would stop working.
I think about
No, LA's expensive. No, I would have a side job, but that $5,000 would be helpful. But $500, I said, there's no, like, who would say, I can live off $500?
Right.
It was just
That's
so
insane.
dumb. But everyone, and all these like smart economists were saying that to me, and I was just like, I ain't the smartest person, but that sounds. I was like, do you know anyone poor? Do you know anyone struggling? Like, who? I said, how you, like, what? And then I also knew that people were going to be able to manage the money well, because I watched my mom, my aunt, and grandmother do it. And think about the intelligence, the resourcefulness, the creativity it takes to make $10 stretch a week, $100 stretch a month.
Right.
To have to go to a check cashing place because your check comes the 15th, the bill is due the 3rd. Like, just the numbers and math. So I was like, no, give people money, and it's going to work. And then the last thing, and I'll get to answer to your more direct answer to your question, was that folks were also like wanting to put all these conditions on it. And I was like, but we just gave $2 trillion in tax cuts in 2017 to the richest folks, the corporations.
Yeah.
And I was like, these little guaranteed income pilot has been audited more
$500
than that and that was philanthropic money. That wasn't even taxpayer money. And I've been audited more than $2 trillion of public money. And it came to me, it wasn't about the money. It was about who the money was going to.
That's right.
And that we had to, part of this work had to be a conversation about dignity not being attached to work, not being attached to production, but dignity being attached to one's humanity. Meaning that, and I'll shut up after this, but like, it's just it's been so wild for me. Like, we've been so warped and backwards in our thinking, because imagine this, like, if we actually treated everyone with dignity, they would be able to go to work with dignified conditions.
This is true.
Dignified conditions, like the ability to collectively bargain,
Right.
like with wages that pay for rent, like the ability to set a schedule, like to know what hours think about it, like just to know the hours I work this week at the beginning of the week so I can plan. Like,
Exactly.
Like we treat people in such undignified ways, and then I would tell people all the time, I don't see anything dignified about working yourself to death, being exhausted, and still not being able to pay for
your
basics.
bills, yeah.
Like, that's actually inherently undignifying, and we have to fix that. And what was the question?
No, you've answered it.
All
You've
right,
answered
all
it.
right.
You know, as we sit here, you know, I was thinking about just everything you had to encounter, doing something new, doing something innovative. I'm sure you learned a lot just as a young mayor, doing things differently, right? So, you know, for this room, this is something I'm very, very curious about as well, is like, what would you say was the greatest lesson that you learned, you know, just during public life, right? While
Yeah.
you were in office.
And then ask me later about the results from the guaranteed income. 'Cause that was the main point, and I just completely just went to like being a philosopher about work and dignity. So many lessons. I think one is a proverb that Senator Booker always says. It's an Ethiopian proverb, and he said, "If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together." It's a lesson I keep learning because I like to go fast and far, but you can't do both. It seems like. So at the time, the things that we were most successful, like the guaranteed income thing, worked because we announced it in 2017 and we dispersed the money in 2019. So we spent a year in meetings, and I hate meetings. I hate them. And we just sit there and talk, and everyone's talking, and it's, but it worked on. You understand? I hate them. But when we just sit, and we had this community advisory board, and community advisory boards, amazing.
Yeah,
things.
I'm familiar.
Amazing, just amazing acts of democracy.
Yeah.
But they everyone's just talk like, I don't know if I agree with this. I don't know about this. Well, how about and it's like, okay, well. But getting people to talk, some wisdom came out of it.
Yeah.
Because for me, I went to target our guaranteed income program to our Promise Zone neighborhood. 'Cause I'm like, we already put a bunch of money in there, a lot of work in there. Like, let's keep it going. But the community advisory board, in their wisdom and in their meetings, they decided that it would be better to make the criterion as broad as possible.
Right.
So that all the city felt like they were a part of this, which is brilliant.
Right.
And I didn't see it at first, but I'm so grateful we did. And we only did that because we had 30 community advisory board meetings in the year 2018. The second sort of big lesson I learned, and I was talking to someone, I don't know if she's here, I forget her name, forgive me, but she is like the outreach manager for the parks.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I learned is the importance of actually listening to your constituents, but just listening. And I say this because I remember one time when I was mayor, a bunch of community leaders came to my office for a meeting, and they were yelling at me about trees. And I'm like, huh? But they was hot. Well, it was hot. They were like, we need more trees in South Stockton. I'm like, we do, yeah, that's okay. But they're like, no, it's important. Like, you need to prioritize this. And I'm like, there was just like a shooting the day before. I'm like, of all the things to work on, you want me to work on trees. But I listened, and I said, all right, y'all, let's do some research on this tree thing. And what we found was that the south part of the city was 3 degrees hotter. Wow. Because the city just decided not to plant as many trees there as in the north side of the city. Like really a policy decision. And the fact that the asthma rates were higher because of environmental toxins, but also because there wasn't trees to help clear that up. And I was like, wow. I would not, and that was one of the things I'm most proud of. We got, I think, $11 million from the state to do some work around reversing all that and hiring folks to plant trees and create like a green job corps. But that only happened because I listened to them folks.
You wouldn't know if you didn't ask the questions.
Dude, we need some trees.
Yeah. And
I'm glad I listened because in my head I was like, really, y'all? You want me to plant some trees?
Yeah. But
yeah, trees are important. I'm not a science major. I didn't know about trees and oxygen. That's brilliant people. The third lesson I learned in public service is that it always seems impossible until it's done. Like anytime you try to do anything, there's a million reasons why you can't do it. But no, it's so easy. But getting to the yes is hard, and it always seems impossible until it's done. And then, and kind of the corollary to that is that oftentimes the status quo is the status quo, not because it's the best way or the most effective way, but because no one's really questioned it. That's sometimes just a why. Yeah. Breaks the whole thing down, the whole paradigm down. I can't tell you how many policies we changed just because I was like, why? Yeah. Like, why are we doing it this way? Why, for procurement, are we not alerting people that we know could qualify to bid on this? To bid, yeah. Why are we not outreaching proactively to community? Why? And then oftentimes it's not a good justification. And then I would say probably the last and most important lesson I learned from my community organizing friends is this idea that there's no permanent friends or permanent enemies, but there's just permanent issues. And knowing that you have a set of issues you want to work on, and sometimes the coalition you use to get to that issue, to get to the win, might be different. It might change. Like maybe the person that voted against me yesterday, I might need that vote tomorrow. So I have to treat that person as if we disagree today, but I might need you tomorrow. And it's hard to do in politics. It feels so personal. But just try not to hold grudges.
Yeah.
Like we disagree on this issue, and when we disagree, we'll disagree. But tomorrow, I'm gonna try to get you again on this issue, and then eventually we'll find an issue that I'll need you on. So many lessons, and I said the last thing, but this is really the last thing. I think the last sort of lesson is to change the game or to play the game. You gotta know the rules. Like I think there's so much stuff we were able to get done just because I was a nerd and like understood parliamentary procedure and like mastered Robert's Rules of Order.
Right.
And none of my colleagues did. Especially when I was on city council, I would mess them up. I would make quick motions. And they would try to talk about, no, there's a motion on the floor. We got to debate the motion. I would mess, or I would text some of my colleagues like, hey, I need you to just, as soon as I'm done speaking, click your button and move. Just because they be trying to like fill up. So like just knowing the rules, and then they would call the city attorney. I'm like, city attorney, tell him. And he's like, no, he's right. And then but because I think oftentimes people talk about like changing the game, but you can't change the game you don't understand.
This is true.
You can't change the game if you don't know the rules. And government's about rules. It's about procedure. It's about process. So once you master the rules and the process and know how to move things, then you're actually can change the game or play the game really well so it gets to the outcomes you want to see.
Yeah. So you inherited a city with a lot of problems, right? You know, like it's an urban community, right? And most urban communities in our country have a lot of similar problems, right? Dayton is going through youth violence, right? We're dealing with poverty. We're dealing with, housing and homelessness. So, you came in like bright-eyed, wanting to do all these incredible things, and you accomplished a lot of them. I'm curious, what is your hope for, urban communities? Having been a young mayor of one, and now leading a national foundation and whatever else you'll do in the future. What is your hope for cities like Dayton, like Stockton?
My biggest hope for cities like Dayton or like Stockton is for folks to realize that maybe some of the solutions to the problems you're seeing are in those communities you neglected and left behind, right? Like maybe the future and the promise of the community is in that Omega Promise Zone as a young child in poverty. Like the fact that part of the reason why we have so many problems is that we don't give everyone the opportunity to be part of the solution. So in Stockton, I always talk about being from South Stockton, growing up poor, particularly when I was speaking to my non-minority audiences, just for them to realize, you see me as the mayor, but 25 years ago, you would have had no idea I could be mayor. Mm-hmm. And imagine all the ways in which the city would have been left out or missed out. And it's not just me. There's such potential and such promise throughout our communities. It's that they get stuck in poverty. They get stuck with all the structural violence. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is that, it's gonna sound very redundant, but change is change, meaning that you can't want change and then be mad when things are different.
That's true.
No, you laugh and people get really upset when things are different, but they want change. No, if you want change, that means something's going to be different. It may challenge your preconceived notions about what actually works.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody could remix this. If you want change, you have to be curious. You have to have a beginner's mindset. You have to be willing and open to new ways of doing. You have to be open to difference. You have to be curious. You can't be changed and have like a static mindset.
Right.
You have to have a real growth mindset. And then I think for communities like Stockton and Dayton to recognize that no one from the outside is coming to save you.
This is true.
No one from the outside is coming to help you. No one from the outside even cares that much about your community, to be frank. And that means it's really on us. It's on you. It's on the neighborhoods. It's on the pastors. It's on the teachers. It's on the parents. It's on the kids. It's on the council. It's on the county supervisors. And back to what I said previously, like, if you have a team that's losing and you keep putting the same losing team out there, you can't be mad if you're losing. Duh. You got to change the players. You got to get some new people in office. You got to get some new people in city management. You got to get new people you got to get new people in these seats. Like, you're not going to get a new game. You grew up in church. You can't put new wine into old wineskins.
Yeah, you preaching.
It don't work.
Yeah.
It don't work. If you got to, again, change is change.
Yeah.
You got to be different. If you want things to stay the same, don't change it.
Right.
But if you want things to be better, there has to be something different.
Yeah.
Different policies, different people, different strategies, etc. And okay, I keep saying last thing, but the real last thing, and I don't know Dayton, I know Stockton, so I'm just talking about Stockton.
Sure.
If I was talking to my folks in Stockton, I would say we also have to be ruthlessly honest and recognize that part of the issues we have is dysfunction at the community level. Like, it's not all government. Like, if the nonprofits can't get together and work together, or if you're more concerned about your grant than your outcomes, that's a problem. Like, we have to all be really, if we want change, we have to be very serious about positioning and working ourselves in a manner where it's about how do we work ourselves out of a job?
Right.
Like, how do we make sure we don't have to do this for 50 years? Like, how do we make sure that we hit this thing so well that in 30 years, this work is no longer necessary?
Poverty is employing a lot of people.
Yeah, oh my, oh, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop saying I'm not going to shut up, so I'll keep talking. But I was speaking at a basic income conference in LA last month. I'm talking to my mom on the phone, and she was like, I said, What do you mean, You not proud? She said, I'm proud. I was like, but what's the And then she said, there's been a lot of talk about guaranteed income, but the income still isn't guaranteed. Like, what's taking so long? And I was like, wow. You are right. We spend a lot. There's a whole industry now.
There is.
Of people who are researching and piloting and speaking.
It's a national focus.
And tweeting and doing pilots for people with cats, and then doing one for people with dogs, and one for people with glasses, and one for people who don't have glasses, and just more questions. But wait, what if we did $502? Like, it's getting so ridiculous, and my mom really calling to focus that, again, once an industry props up around a problem where the incentive structure isn't solving the problem, but talking about solving the problem, it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
The industry becomes the problem, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something I would tell my folks in Stockton. Like, let's do this work, but let's do it with real fidelity to actually getting something done. And not saying we're going to have all the right answers. We have to be committed to iterating, to give us the grace to be wrong. But when we're wrong, don't lie. Course correct. Don't fudge the numbers. Course correct. Let's just say, like, okay, we tried. We literally thought this was the best idea. It wasn't. Let's try something else. And I think because there's real folks whose jobs aren't working on the problem, but are living the problem.
This is true.
Like, whose misery provides sustenance for folks. And that should create an urgency to get this right.
Yes. So, yeah, that's an applause line for sure. So I don't want to miss the results of universal basic income. Like, I know we wanted to come right back to that. So talk about what happened.
So in Stockton, we found that, people spend money the way you and I spend money. So the money was spent on food. The money was spent on utilities. The money during COVID was spent on staying home and not getting sick. The money was spent on, there's a guy, Tomas, who talked, I remember I did a conversation with him before the results came out, just to have a community conversation while the work was happening. And I asked him, and I wasn't as prepared as you, so I was just freestyling. And I probably shouldn't have done that. So I asked him, I said, Tomas, how did you spend your $500 the first month? I thought he was going to say, like, he saved it or something. You know something? He said, I went to an interview. And I'm like, So I'm like trying to stay composed on stage, but in my head, I'm like, this brother spent $500 to interview? Man, maybe we do need this coaching folks was talking about, because that sounds crazy to me. So then, but being curious, I said, you surely, I was trying to lead him to, I said, you surely didn't pay $500 for an interview. And then he started laughing. And I was like, oh, here we go. The experiment's over. And then he said, no, Mayor. I said, oh, thank you. I said, so what did you mean by that? And he said, I work, the job I have doesn't have paid time off. So there's been jobs I've been qualified for, but I can never afford to take a day off work and try to apply for this job. And I said, tell me more about that. He said, well, if you don't have paid time off and you live paycheck to paycheck, a day off work is a guaranteed missing money. And I have kids. There's no room for error. There's no room for me to try. So he said the $500 let me take a day off work so I can apply for this other job that's full-time, that's benefits, that's stable hours. That's and lucky beautiful. For him, he got it, right? And we hear that, and we see that over and over again. So in Stockton, we saw part-time to full-time work, 2 times difference between those who received the $500 and those who didn't. Mm-hmm. Because, and I didn't know this till we were doing this work, it costs money to, which makes it sounds so dumb now, but I didn't know. Like, I didn't think about it. It costs money to go to work. It costs money to get your clothes dry cleaned if you're a nurse or a security guard. Yeah. It costs money to pay for someone to watch your child if you're going to work. It costs money to put gas to get your car. It costs money to go to work. And we saw that $500 was unlocking the opportunity for folks to get back into the workforce. We found that those who received the guaranteed income were 2 times less likely to be unemployed than those who didn't, right? And that's just in Stockton. But since then, we have like 172 mayors who are part of Mayors for Guaranteed Income. We have 53 county officials who are part of counties for guaranteed income. We have, I think we released 12 studies just this year from St. Paul to New Orleans to Birmingham to Shreveport to Albuquerque to Gainesville to Durham. Some giving money to formerly incarcerated people, some giving money to teenagers, some giving money to mothers, and all showing the same thing, that $500 or $1,000, LA, $500, $1,000 isn't enough to solve all the issues, right. But it is enough to solve the issue of not having $500.
This is true. Yeah, you can do something.
You
definitely do something.
And it makes the other issues more solvable.
Right. Yeah. You have a little more room, right, to live.
To breathe.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. I want to leave room for Q&A if we have some audience questions, but I have just 2 quick final questions that I want to kind of couch together.
Are you saying that because you want quick answers?
This is true, yeah. No, you've taught us a lot tonight. You've dropped tons of gems, so this has been fun. Number 1, we're in a library, right? You've wrote this phenomenal memoir, which I got to read before we sat down today. What are you reading right now? Right. What are your book recommendations? Man, luckily, I'm glad I started reading because I don't have to lie. Woof. You asked me 2 months ago, like, I don't know, Coco Melon. Well, you do got kids, so.
Oh man, I be reading. What they got me reading? They're not here. I think I wish they had a better taste in children's book. I try to read Elizabeth Woodson. They want to read Frozen every night. Wow. Son and daughter, like, let's read Frozen.
It's popular, man.
And Encanto. Anyway, so I'm reading those every night.
Of course.
And then I'm reading Barack Obama's last memoir.
I am too, believe it or not. It's crazy.
Which is interesting. To like just the benefit of time to look back. Yeah. I'm kind of, because my wife's a real author. So I'm kind of, she wrote the book called The Three Mothers about MLK, James Baldwin, and Malcolm X's mother. Beautiful. And for James Baldwin's birthday.
Plug for the wife. You gotta do that. Good job. Good job.
Stuck it in. But no, on James Baldwin's birthday, she got a bunch of James Baldwin books I stole. So I'm trying. It's in my bag, so in my head I'm reading or rereading.
That's how that goes. Carrying it,
fire next time, but you know, like LeBron does when he just shows the book, but he's not really reading it.
Yeah,
that's what I'm doing with that.
Seeing those memes.
And then there was a really good book I got sent the Uncle Nearest book last week, so I'm gonna read some of that. But honestly, I wish I read more. But Coco Melon and Encanto and
Taking
Frozen
up a lot of time, huh?
Take up all my reading space.
Okay. Last question, and then we'll go to audience Q&A. What's next for you?
Yeah, like professionally, personally.
Both.
Yeah, I think I live in LA now. I have 3 kids now. I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, 11-month-old. Right. So what's next is that beauty and being a father. Politically, I just announced I'm running for lieutenant governor of California in 2026. So that's that's next. But and actually, you didn't ask this question, but I think this is probably the most important lesson. So we said all this good stuff, all this wisdom and blah blah blah. But I actually did lose re-election. Like I wasn't re-elected in 2020. And we can talk about why, but I don't think that's as important as what was learned from that. And I'll transition to a conclusion for you. But, because I think it's important, right? Because I think oftentimes we think about making change as this glamorous thing where you get to give book talks and you get to like talk about what you did. But there's progress comes at a price. Right? And you have to just be really okay with that. And I think what I learned from losing re-election was this idea that we're often told to think about what we're willing to win for. But the gift of losing was I learned the answer to the question, like, what was I willing to lose for?
Yeah,
right?
That's beautiful.
And I think that answer, willing to lose for poverty, willing to lose for like opportunity for all people, willing to lose for government working, has given me such a clarity about sort of what I will and won't do, sort of almost a fearlessness. Like if these set of issues are losing issues, I'm okay with that. Because I think in the end, we'll win. And also this idea that progress, change in life is not a straight line. It's not a straight path. There's detours, there's rejections, there's closed doors, there's wins, there's losses. And the idea is to really understand that your purpose isn't tied to a position. And that's why I hesitate when you ask like what's next, because I'm like, yes, I'm running for this office and I don't want to lose again, so I'll make sure I don't. But like just having such clarity now that regardless of the position, my purpose will always be figuring out how do we end poverty, how do we end structural violence, and how do we make this country work for everyone. And that's in office or out of office, but only knew that because I lost. And I had to figure out like, okay, well, what you about to do?
Yeah,
do you really care about this stuff? And the answer is I do.
Thank you. We give it up for Michael Tubbs, please.